You think you know Ezra Bridger, the street rat from Lothal who stumbled into the Ghost Crew, the kid who learned to wield a lightsaber and the Force. But that's only the surface. Ezra's journey isn't just about becoming a Jedi, it's about surviving in the cracks between chaos and order, between hope and despair. His path is the blueprint for how you navigate a galaxy that doesn't play fair. And in August 2025, when the Star Wars universe is bigger, messier, and more unpredictable than ever, that blueprint matters more than you might realize. This isn't a story about walking the straight path of the light or falling completely into darkness. No, this is about living and thriving in the gray. The moments where the lines blur, the rules break, and the right choice feels impossible. Ezra wasn't handed a destiny. He stole it from the Empire that crushed his home, from the Jedi who had already all but vanished, from the galaxy that said survival meant keeping your head down. He refused. He fought, and sometimes he bent the rules in ways that would make the Jedi Council lose sleep for a decade. From the moment Kanan Jarrus took him in as an apprentice, to the daring rescue missions that rewrote the rules of war, to his final, world-shattering confrontation with Grand Admiral Thrawn, Ezra's life is a masterclass in adaptability, courage, and finding purpose when the odds are stacked against you. And here's the thing most people miss. Ezra's defining power isn't just in the Force, it's in the way he reads a moment, makes a choice, and commits, even when that choice isn't perfect. Because, let's be honest, life, whether in a galaxy far, far away or here in ours, is rarely clean-cut. You're going to face impossible situations. You're going to stand at crossroads where every option has a cost. And when that happens, do you cling to the rules? Or do you adapt like Ezra, finding the path that no one else sees? That's what we're breaking down today. The critical turning points in Ezra Bridger's life. How each choice reshaped his destiny and the fate of the galaxy. And what we can learn from a boy who became something far more than just a Jedi. By the end of this, you might just see him, and maybe yourself, in a completely different light. The spark of a rebellion. Ezra Bridger's story begins not in a Jedi temple, nor on a battlefield, but in the shadowed streets of Lothal City. A boy with sharp eyes, quick fingers, and a quicker tongue. A survivor. He knew every alley and rooftop, every way to slip past stormtrooper patrols without being seen. His days were spent scavenging, stealing, and scraping together just enough to make it to the next sunrise. Not out of greed, but out of necessity. In an Empire-controlled world, survival wasn't about playing fair. It was about playing smart. But beneath that streetwise exterior, there was a quiet ache. Ezra had no family, no home, no one to trust. That longing for connection would become the ember that one day ignited into something far greater. From street urchin to ghost crew. The moment that changed everything came almost by accident. Ezra's curiosity and maybe a little bit of instinct pulled him into a mission that wasn't his. The Ghost Crew, led by Harrison Dula, was in the middle of a daring heist against Imperial supplies when Ezra intervened, thinking only of grabbing some food for himself. That single choice sent him tumbling into the lives of people who would become his found family. Hera, the heart of the rebellion. Zeb, the gruff but fiercely loyal warrior. Sabine, the quick-thinking Mandalorian artist. And Kanan Jarrus, the man who would change Ezra's life forever. Ezra didn't know it then, but he had just stepped onto a path that would connect him to the heart of a galaxy-wide fight. First Force flickers. Before Ezra understood the word Jedi, the Force had already been whispering to him. It showed in his uncanny reflexes, his ability to sense danger a second before it happened, the way he could leap farther and move faster than anyone else his age. At first, these were just tricks to him, useful for avoiding stormtroopers or slipping through security gates. But Kanan saw what they really were, signs of something greater. The first time Ezra truly felt the Force, it was raw and overwhelming. He reached out instinctively, pulling an object toward him without touching it. It was clumsy, untrained, and yet undeniably powerful. That moment wasn't just a display of talent, it was the Force itself, answering a boy who didn't yet understand the language it spoke. Kanan's reluctant mentorship. Kanan Jarrus wasn't looking for a Padawan. In truth, he wasn't even sure he still was a Jedi in the way the Order had defined it. The Jedi Code had died with the Republic, and Kanan carried the scars of that loss every day. Training someone new meant reopening wounds he had spent years trying to ignore. But Ezra was different. There was a stubbornness in him, a refusal to back down even when the odds were impossible. Kanan recognized the same fire he had once carried as a boy. Their early lessons were anything but smooth. Ezra resisted authority, questioned every instruction, and pushed back when told what to do. And Kanan, haunted by his own incomplete training, often doubted whether he could guide someone at all. Yet, the galaxy doesn't wait for perfect conditions. In the heat of missions, under blaster fire, and against Imperial forces, teacher and student forged something stronger than either of them expected: trust. Kanan began to see that Ezra's defiance wasn't recklessness. It was the courage to think differently. And Ezra learned that discipline didn't mean losing himself. It meant refining the strengths he already had. A spark ready to ignite. By the time Ezra truly became part of the Ghost Crew, his life had transformed. He wasn't just stealing to survive anymore. He was fighting for something bigger than himself. The hunger for family he had carried for years was finally answered, not with blood relatives, but with people who believed in him, pushed him, and stood beside him. This was the spark of a rebellion, not just against the Empire, but against the hopelessness the Empire thrived on. And for Ezra Bridger, it was the first step toward becoming more than just a survivor. It was the first step toward becoming a leader, walking the line, temptation and the dark side. For all his courage and determination, Ezra Bridger was never immune to the shadows. In fact, it was precisely his compassion, his willingness to take risks for others, that made him vulnerable. And the one who saw that weakness most clearly was Maul. Maul's insidious influence. Maul didn't approach Ezra like a conqueror. He approached like a teacher, someone who understood the frustrations of the Jedi way, who offered answers instead of riddles, shortcuts instead of patience. To a boy who had lost so much and carried the burden of protecting his friends, the lure of easy power was intoxicating. Maul promised him the ability to end the Empire's tyranny, to save lives faster, to stop waiting for victories that never came. Ezra told himself he could take what Maul offered without falling, that he could use that power for good. But every lesson from Maul carried the same quiet poison: trust only yourself, ignore the old rules, and act without hesitation. The holocrons they unlocked together weren't just repositories of knowledge, they were gateways. They whispered of destinies, of weapons, of paths, paved not with balance, but with dominance. Confronting Vader and Thrawn, temptation is easy to resist in calm waters. But when the storm hits, that's when the cracks show. Ezra's path forced him into the orbit of two of the Empire's most dangerous figures, Darth Vader and Grand Admiral Thrawn. Vader was pure, relentless destruction, the embodiment of what happens when the dark side wins. Against him, Ezra felt the weight of his own inadequacy, the constant whisper that he wasn't strong enough to protect anyone without taking darker measures. Thrawn was different, calculated, patient, always 10 steps ahead. Fighting Thrawn wasn't about raw power. It was about navigating a chessboard where every piece was a life on Lothal. For Ezra, it was an exhausting test of whether cunning alone could win without slipping into the manipulations Maul had taught him. Every encounter was a trial. Hold the line of the Jedi way or bend it just this once to survive. The Loth Wolf whispers. It was on Lothal, his homeworld, that Ezra's connection to the Force took a turn no Jedi textbook could explain. The Loth Wolves, mysterious, massive, and ancient, came to him in visions and dreams. They spoke in riddles, moved between worlds, and carried an energy that felt older than the Republic, older even than the Sith. Through them, Ezra learned that the Force wasn't confined to lightsabers and Jedi councils. It pulsed through every stone, every gust of wind, every living thing. This was a connection neither Maul nor the traditional Jedi could fully claim. But the Loth Wolves didn't give commands. They offered choices. And choices, for someone walking the razor's edge between light and dark, were the most dangerous tests of all. Walking the edge, Ezra's journey through temptation wasn't about a single moment of turning or refusing to turn. It was about living in that in-between space, day after day, mission after mission. The dark side never stopped calling, never stopped promising that one bold step could make everything easier. And yet, the whispers of the Loth Wolves, the lessons from Kanan, and the trust of his crew reminded him that real strength wasn't in taking control. It was in letting go of it. He didn't always get it right. He stumbled. He made choices that haunted him. But he learned to see that survival wasn't the same as victory, and that protecting the galaxy meant protecting himself from becoming the very thing he fought against. Ezra Bridger's greatest battle was never against the Empire. It was against the shadow that waited patiently inside him. Sacrifice and self-discovery. By the time Ezra Bridger's journey circled back to Lothal, he was no longer the wide-eyed street thief chasing meals and shelter. He had faced Sith Lords, matched wits with Imperial masterminds, and touched parts of the Force that even the Jedi of old barely understood. But none of that mattered as much as this. His home was still under Imperial control. And this time, there would be no half measures. Saving his home Lothal wasn't just a battlefield. It was Ezra's heartbeat, the place where his parents had planted their quiet resistance and paid the ultimate price. The city streets, the grasslands, the skies, they carried his memories and his people's suffering. When Grand Admiral Thrawn returned with the might of the Imperial fleet, Ezra understood that defeating him wouldn't just free Lothal, it could inspire countless others across the galaxy. But Thrawn was no reckless warlord. He was precise, strategic, and armed with an intimate understanding of his enemy's weaknesses. Ezra's plan would have to be equally daring. He called upon every skill he had learned, every scrap of Jedi discipline, every trick of deception Maul had whispered, every lesson of patience from Kanan, and he paired them with something no Imperial could predict: the wild, untamed power of the Purgil, the massive hyperspace traveling creatures he had once encountered. It wasn't just about winning. It was about ending the fight in one irreversible stroke, beyond the known galaxy. The moment came in the heart of Thrawn's flagship. Face to face with the Grand Admiral, Ezra knew he could end this, but only at a cost no one else could be asked to bear. When the Purgil descended from hyperspace, their massive tentacles tearing into the Chimera's hull, Ezra locked eyes with Thrawn. Neither man looked away. In that instant, both understood exactly what was about to happen. The Purgil's tentacles wrapped around the ship, dragging it toward the void beyond charted space. Ezra didn't hesitate. He stayed aboard, making sure Thrawn and the threat he posed would vanish together. It wasn't a fight to the death. It was a surrender to the unknown, the kind of leap only someone who had learned to trust the Force completely could make. As the ship and its captives were pulled into hyperspace, Lothal was freed. The people celebrated. The Ghost Crew grieved. And somewhere, far beyond the reaches of any map, Ezra Bridger disappeared. The weight of prophecy. Ezra's absence wasn't the end of his story. In fact, it was the fulfillment of threads woven long before his birth. The Lothwolves had hinted at a role only he could play, one that demanded both strength and sacrifice. The world between worlds had shown him that time itself was malleable, that destiny wasn't a straight line, but a living tapestry. He understood now that his path wasn't about being a Jedi in the old mold. It was about becoming something the galaxy needed in its moment of greatest imbalance. His departure with Thrawn wasn't an escape. It was a choice, a gamble that somewhere out there, in the uncharted reaches, his presence could tip the scales of a much larger conflict, one that extended far beyond the fate of a single planet. For Ezra, sacrifice and self-discovery were two sides of the same coin. Saving Lothal meant giving up the safety of home, and finding his true self meant stepping into a darkness where no one could guide him, except the Force. Ezra Bridger's legacy isn't just in the battles he fought, but in the choices he made when no one was watching, when the galaxy wasn't ready to call him a hero. His story reminds us that sometimes the greatest victories come from letting go, and that the most powerful journeys are the ones that never truly end. Echoes of the past, hopes for the future. Even after Ezra Bridger vanished beyond the known galaxy, his presence continued to ripple across the stars. The battles were over. Lothal was free. And yet, the story didn't end, because the galaxy never forgets a hero who chooses the unknown. Ahsoka's tireless search for Ahsoka Tano. Ezra's disappearance wasn't closure, it was a call to action. She had trained alongside Anakin Skywalker, fought in the Clone Wars, and faced the galaxy's darkest forces. But finding Ezra would test her in ways no past battle could. Ahsoka understood the boy in ways others couldn't. She knew the Force flowed through him differently, that his path would be his own. Yet every mission, every whisper from the Outer Rim reminded her of what, or rather who, was missing. Through contacts, intercepted transmissions, and dangerous reconnaissance, she pursued threads leading deeper into the unknown. Each clue carried hope, but also the bitter taste of frustration. How do you track someone who has willingly stepped into the galaxy's uncharted corners? Someone who can disappear with the currents of hyperspace itself. Sabine's unwavering loyalty. Sabine Wren, too, refused to let Ezra slip from memory. Her loyalty was unshakable, not just to the friend who once shared the Ghost Crew's laughter and victories, but to the hope that the galaxy needed him alive. Every day, she rebuilt strategies, repurposed old networks, and consulted allies across planets far and wide. And though she wore the confident armor of a Mandalorian warrior, inside, a quiet worry gnawed at her. What if time had changed him? What if he was no longer the Ezra they once knew? Still, she persisted. Every mural painted, every weapon forged, every mission she undertook in the name of resistance carried a silent promise. She would bring him home, or at least understand where he had gone and why. Thrawn's return. And then there was Grand Admiral Thrawn. Even in the vast, empty reaches of space, his presence loomed like a shadow. Ezra's disappearance had not meant the end of the threat. Thrawn's strategic brilliance, his ability to anticipate every move and counter every plan, remained as formidable as ever. The galaxy now watches closely. Thrawn's movements could indicate he seeks Ezra to leverage him, or perhaps he follows him into the unknown, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. His return isn't just a looming threat, it's a question. Will Ezra emerge to confront him, or continue in isolation, mastering new strengths the galaxy cannot yet comprehend? The lingering tension, Ezra's absence has left gaps that the Empire, or what remnants persist, may attempt to exploit. The Outer Rim is restless. Rebels and neutral planets alike have heard whispers of a Force-sensitive figure operating beyond the charted star systems. Each rumor, each sighting, keeps hope alive, but also tension tight. Allies wonder if Ezra is lost or evolving, if the balance he restored on Lothal can extend into the wider galaxy, or if the galaxy itself may collapse under threats he cannot yet confront. Through all this, the Force itself seems to hum with expectation. It is as if the currents of destiny are drawing Ezra towards something monumental, something that may define the next generation of heroes, or reshape the galaxy in ways no one anticipates. A story unfinished. The story of Ezra Bridger is far from complete. He represents the enduring truth that sometimes heroes don't leave their mark through public victories or grandiose displays of power. Sometimes the greatest legacies are written in absence, in the quiet ripple effects of courage, loyalty, and the choices made when no one is watching. Ahsoka, Sabine, and even Thrawn remind us that the galaxy remembers. The past echoes in every daring act, every whispered legend, and every unresolved mystery. And the future? The future carries the promise that when Ezra Bridger returns, it will not just be a homecoming, it will be a reckoning, a transformation, and a testament to the enduring spirit of those willing to walk the line between light and dark. A Jedi, defined by uncertainty, Ezra Bridger's journey is unlike that of any Jedi before him. He did not rise in a temple filled with mentors or follow the rigid codes of the past. His path was carved from necessity, choice, and the unpredictable currents of the galaxy itself. The uncharted path. From the streets of Lothal to the depths of hyperspace beyond charted systems, Ezra's story defies conventional definitions of a Jedi. He learned from Kanan, yes, but he also learned from Maul, from the Lothal, and from the galaxy itself. Every lesson, every confrontation, every victory and failure shaped him into someone who doesn't fit neatly into old categories. Ezra showed that being a Jedi isn't just about lightsabers, meditating in temples, or following a strict moral code. It's about making the hard choices when the line between right and wrong is blurred, and having the courage to act even when the outcome is uncertain. His Jedihood is measured not in rank or recognition, but in resilience, adaptability, and the willingness to embrace the unknown, living with the unknown. Even after the liberation of Lothal, Ezra's impact reverberates across the galaxy. The rebellion, inspired by his daring strategies and unorthodox tactics, gained momentum in ways that traditional Jedi would have never envisioned. He has become a symbol that hope doesn't always come from order or predictability, but from ingenuity, daring, and faith in oneself. The unknown is not simply a threat to be feared, it is a tool, a teacher, and a test. Ezra's willingness to venture where others wouldn't, even to face Thrawn in the uncharted void of hyperspace, demonstrates that true strength is forged in uncertainty. Every rebel who knew him, every friend and ally, carries the lessons he embodied. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the mastery of it. Speculating on his destiny. And now, with the galaxy ever-changing, the question remains, what comes next for Ezra Bridger? Will he return from the void of uncharted space? And if so, how will his experiences reshape the Force itself? A live-action appearance could bridge generations, connecting fans of Star Wars Rebels with a wider audience while exploring themes that only Ezra's unique journey could illuminate. What would it mean for the Jedi, for the rebellion, for the ongoing battle between light and dark? His absence leaves space for speculation, which is precisely what makes his legacy so compelling. Unlike other Jedi whose stories concluded with either triumph or tragedy, Ezra exists in a state of potential. A hero whose narrative continues to unfold beyond what we can see, whose choices in the shadows may determine the galaxy's future balance. A new paradigm for the Jedi Ezra redefines what it means to be a Jedi in a post-Empire galaxy. His story reminds us that heroism isn't about titles or adherence to tradition. It's about the courage to act decisively when confronted with impossible odds. It's about protecting the vulnerable, challenging the powerful, and embracing the risks that others shy away from. He demonstrates that the Force is not confined to doctrine or dogma. It flows wherever life, need, and purpose converge. By navigating uncertainty, Ezra shows that the Jedi can evolve, not simply as keepers of peace, but as agents of hope who adapt, innovate, and sometimes operate outside the rules to preserve what truly matters. Enduring inspiration. Ultimately, Ezra Bridger is a testament to resilience, ingenuity, and the human or galactic spirit's capacity to thrive in unpredictability. His path is unfinished, his legacy in motion, and his influence pervasive. Those who fight for justice, freedom, and balance in the galaxy carry echoes of his choices, long after he has disappeared from view. He teaches that being a Jedi isn't about certainty, control, or adherence to precedent. It's about embracing the unknown, stepping boldly into uncharted territories, and leaving a mark not defined by expectations, but by courage, ingenuity, and the enduring power of hope.